Characteristics used to classify living things. 1. Nutrition. Heterotrophic. Consumes living-dead to get energy. Autotrophic. Uses sun energy to make its own food. 2. Number of cells. Unicellular. One cell. Multicellular. More than one cell. Reproduction. Asexual. Offspring is used to produce a single parent. Sexual. Production of offspring is from fusion of two sex cells. A habitat, which is where an organism lives. Cell type. Prokaryotic. Genetic material, circular chromosome in nuclear region. Organelles. Cell parts. No membrane bound to organelles. No true nucleus. Very small size, and binary fission. Eukaryotic. Double-stranded chromosome and nucleus, membrane-bound organelles, larger in size, cell division by mitosis or meiosis. Classification. Taxonomy. Classified organisms according to their structure similarity. Each group which is assigned is also called a taxa. Phylogeny. Modern taxonomy groups based on their evolutionary relatedness. An organisms share common ancestry. They show similar stages of embryological development and anatomical stages. The 7 main taxon groups: phylum, kingdom, class, order, family, genus, species. 6 kingdoms of classifications: Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, Protistae, fungi, plantae, and animalia. Prokaryotics. They are unicellular, they have no nuclear membrane or other membranes around organelles, they are small, and they only have one circular chromosome. They come in many different shapes, including coccus, a sphere-shaped, baculus, which is rod-shaped, spirillus, which is spiral-shaped, staphylo, which is a cluster, mono, which is one, diplo, which is two, and strepto, which is in a chain. Bacterium cell walls gram-positive and gram-negative. Gram-negative equals they cannot absorb the stain, and if it can absorb the stain, that means the bacteria have a thick outer layer of peptidin in their cell walls, and then that they are said to be gram-positive. Bacteria respiration and metabolism in prokaryotes. Aerobic means they grow in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic means they grow in the absence of oxygen. Obligate aerobes must have oxygen to grow. Obligate anaerobes must not have oxygen to grow. Facultative anaerobes mean that they can grow with or without oxygen. Autotrophs make their own energy and use solar or other chemical compounds to fix CO2. Heterotrophs obtain energy from eating other organisms. Chemotrophs make own energy from chemicals like sulfur. Methanogens convert chemical compounds to methane gas. Halophiles like salt water. Extreme thermophiles like warm environments, and psychrophiles of cold environments. Bacterial reproduction. Binary fission, nuclear material doubles, cell divides in half, new daughter cells separate. Conjugation. 2 bacteria form connecting tube between themselves and exchange DNA. Spore formation. Type of dormant cell. Exhibits no signs of life and has a highly resistant structure that forms. Archaebacteria or archaea. They are prokaryotic. Cell walls are present, but gram staining is not used for their classification. They often live in extreme environments like lakes, hot spring, animal guts. They do not cause diseases. Anaerobic methanogens are release of all methane gas at the bottoms of marshes and swamps. They are chemotrophs, halophiles, and thermophiles. Eubacteria or bacteria. They are prokaryotic. The cell wall may be present, contains peptogen, which allows the gram stain to be penetrated. So it would be gram-positive Streptococcus or Staphylococcus. A cell wall may be diminished or absent and instead covered in fats, so it would be gram-negative, example E. coli or Salmonella. They can live nearly anywhere and cause disease. Viruses. What are viruses? They are small, non-living particles. They contain no cytoplasm. They are not cellular. They cannot grow or reproduce on their own. They do not produce or use energy. They do not create waste. And they are packages of genetic instructions that can enter and take control of the cells, and they make copies. The basic structure of a virion. Genetic material, RNA or DNA, is core. The capsid, or the head, is a protein coat that surrounds and protects the genetic material. Note, some viruses are surrounded by an envelope, which is created when a virus leaves the host cell and part of the host cell membrane wraps around the virus. RNA or DNA. Viruses with RNA are called retroviruses. They have a higher mutation rate. Viruses with DNA are usually stable, constant, and vaccines are effective against them. 2 methods of viral replication. 1. Lactic cycle. Virus enters cell, replicates itself hundreds of times, and then bursts out of the cell, killing it. Lysogenetic cycle. Virus enters the cell, viral DNA interrogates with the host DNA and becomes inactive. The host functions normally. An environmental change may cause the virus to enter the lactic cycle. How are viruses spread? Vectors carry viruses from one host to another. Example, insects cause yellow fever, animals contribute to rabies, water is polio, air comes from flu, and humans transfer HIV and the flu. The kingdom Protista. Protists. 200,000 species. They are very difficult to classify, like the Elugina and the Parisium we studied in class. No typical protists. Most are aquatic and some are terrestrial. Only characteristic that all protists share is that they are not animals, plants, or fungi. Most are single-celled. A single-cell protist reproduce asexually, by binary fission, and sexually by conjugation. Multicellular protists are more complex. They may involve formation of sex cells, haploid, sperm, and egg, and when the sex cells fuse, a diploid zygote is formed. Some alternate between a diploid and haploid stage, which is called the alternation of generations. Fungi. Characteristics. They are sessile, they cannot move. They are heterotrophic, not photosynthesis. Eukaryotic, saprobic, they can absorb food. They absorb their food from decaying matter. They do not contain chlorophyll, and they have cell walls made of chitin. Uses. Fungi keep forest floors clean. They make trees and plants grow faster, which means they are lichens, and they are food for humans. Saprobes. Fungi cannot digest food within their bodies. To overcome this, fungi release digestive enzymes into the immediate environment. These enzymes break down the dead organic matter. The fungi then absorbs digested food through the cell walls. 3 main types of spores. Sporangium, which is like bread molds. The spores in a case-like structure. Actis, molds, mildew, and yeast. This is spores in a sac-like structure. And basidium, which is mushrooms and puffballs, and they are spores in a club-like structure. Reproduction. Most fungi reproduce asexually and sexually by spores. A spore is a cell that has a haploid number of chromosomes. There are 3 main types of spores, also produced sexually by the conjugation of the hyphae to the zygospore. Plants. There are 6 characteristics of land plants: eukaryotic, multicellular. They carry out photosynthesis, most are terrestrial. They have cell walls and are composed primarily of cellulose, and they are also sessile. 4 main groups of land plants: bryophytes, which are mosses; pterophytes, which includes ferns; gymnosperms, which includes pines and conifers; and finally angiosperms, which are flowering plants. All plants have 2-generation life cycles known as the alternation of generations. A plant exists in 2 forms. The gamophyte generation. Haploid generation is the gamophyte that produces gametes. Haploid spores are produced which undergo cell division and grow into a new plant. The plant is haploid when it is mature. It produces gametes, and these gametes fuse and produce a diploid zygote, which grows into a diploid sporophyte plant, and then the plant is in the sporophyte generation. A diploid generation is the sporophyte that produces spores by meiosis. Plants look quite different from the gamophyte. Note that spores are haploid structures that develop or mature into the gamophyte of the plant.